I was sitting in a beautiful environment in Vancouver, and I felt awful, and I felt like there's nobody here who knows that I'm sitting here in my Airbnb and I'm just crying every day, and I find it so hard.
Hello, and thank you for joining our podcast, Hope to Recharge, a show that is designed to bring hope, inspiration, motivation, and some practical tips to those that are battling depression and anxiety, and to those that are supporting loved ones that are going through the journey in this difficult time of depression and anxiety. I'm here to tell you, you are not alone, and we will live beyond depression and anxiety. We will share our stories, one story at a time. In a world of mental health, together is better. I'm your host, Matana. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Hope to Recharge. I have a very special guest today, Mary Stracke.
That was right.
Good? Yes?
Yes.
Introduce
Hello.
yourself. I want to hear you saying it in your words.
Okay. Hello, my name is Mary Stracke. The name is German, so a lot of people struggle with it, but you did it perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Mary, we know each other for over a year from social media. She actually lives between London and Germany, and she goes back and forth. And I had the honor of meeting her personally in New York. We met in June last year. She just reminded me it was June. I thought it was 2 years ago because we became so close. And I thought we'd know each other for longer, but she reminded me that was just last year that we met in Midtown Manhattan on a lovely kosher little store. And we went back realizing that we're more connected than we even think we are, even though we live on the opposite sides of the globe. I love everything about her spirit, her energy. I found her on Instagram. She was blogging about depression and anxiety and her journey on it. And I don't even know how I found it. It came my way with the divine energy of God, and I really believe that. What struck me so amazingly about Mary was that she was so open about it, and she was inviting everybody on her journey of healing through depression and anxiety. And she was so humble, is so humble still about the journey. Now, she's so freaking talented, a writer, actress, a comedian, a real artist, full of heart, full of love, joy. And she is beautiful inside out, literally beautiful inside out. So it's such an honor for me to have this conversation with her on my podcast. One of my first interviews, I was just reminding her that when I met her in Manhattan last year, I told her she was the first person I told about the podcast, about my dream. And here we are fulfilling my dream. And she is going to be on my first journey of this podcast. So thank you so much for being here with me.
I'm so happy because I know we were sitting in this tiny restaurant, weren't we, on that beautiful day in Manhattan, and you were telling me all about this idea about a podcast and, giving it that new sense from your perspective, from your community as well, and merging it with, for example, my perspective, how I've come through, the world of mental health. And I thought that was so inspiring. And I remember getting on the tube, no, not the tube, we're not in London, getting on the subway in New York and thinking, wow, I really 100% believe that she's going to do this podcast. So I was not surprised when you called me and said, oh, I'm actually, finally doing it.
Yes.
So well done.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I've been watching your journeys of traveling. You love to travel. You love adventure. You love living life. I find that part of our struggles as dealing with depression and anxiety is how are we going to feel tomorrow where we are when we love to travel? Is our image of today going to be what we dream of when we wake up tomorrow? So how do you deal with that when you travel so much and you have you told me last year you want to be in so many countries and you've fulfilled so many of that. So how does that come with your journey of traveling, interact with your journey of depression and anxiety?
Well, I think that it's, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that it is not easy to travel, especially by yourself, when you have anxiety and depression. And I had some PTSD fun as well in there. When you have that in your luggage, it isn't easy. You do have to be aware of, I think, different things than if you're a carefree person that never thinks too much, which I generally think, there are very few of that special breed. So I think what's important is to be realistic that you will have days that just feel, pretty shit. And it doesn't matter if you sit in the most beautiful environment, if you look at palm trees, or, if you sit in a coffee shop in Manhattan or Las Vegas, or you're staring at the Grand Canyon. It really doesn't matter. You will have that morning where you wake up and the sun just doesn't feel as warm. And to not then go into a panic on top of that negative feeling, I think is most important, to be realistic in the sense that, okay, well, this is just the same as if this is happening at home. I just have these feelings and they're valid, and I'm just going to do what I do at home, which is I treat myself to something nice. I try and be kind to myself, even if I am in an amazing city or, in the rainforest or whatnot. I do not have to go outside right now, despite the fact I'm traveling and I'm paying, of course, for this experience. If I don't feel like it, I can, I can have an hour-long shower or eat a big piece of cake or in my pajamas and not leave the house and not feel guilty about that on top of it.
That's
because
so important.
Because I think when you travel, you have this expectation and this pressure that every day needs to be amazing. And if you're only traveling, say, for like a week, you go to a tropical island with your family or your friends, it's possibly achievable that you can do that. But if you travel long term, naturally, you're going to have down days. It's even for a person who doesn't suffer from any mental health issues as such, I think they also have a negative, a day where they just get up with the wrong foot. And I think, therefore, it's important to know that only because you're embarking on this big adventure, it doesn't change the fact that these times just happen. And I would also say what is important to do before you go away is to know your support system and to know, is there someone I can call? Because if you're in a place where you don't know anyone, like when I was in Canada, I just didn't know a single soul. That's why I was so glad to meet people in New York, where I went afterwards. But I was sitting in the most beautiful environment in Vancouver, and I felt awful, and I felt like there's nobody here who knows that I'm sitting here in my Airbnb and I'm just crying every day, and I find it so hard. So being able to call someone back home is, I think, truly, truly important. That you have on speed dial, that you can also call in the middle of the night because of the time difference, and that person can just give you a hug through the telephone.
Yeah,
things like that.
that's
Be
so
aware.
true. It's so true. And as you're saying it, I'm remembering that me living in New York and my family in Israel, 7 hours apart, was always a bonus for me, because when my New York support went to sleep, it was the morning of my sisters, my parents, my friends in Israel, that I can always say, okay, everybody's sleeping. It's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning here. I can't fall asleep. I'm having an anxiety attack. Walk me through it. Just hear me cry or tell me I'm going to be okay. And I forgot about that. So thank you for reminding me how important and vital that was, to really remember that we can have a support all over. Even if it's not right near us, someone holding our hand, we really can reach out to support everywhere. And especially with traveling, because it could get very lonely. Very, very lonely. And when you're dealing with depression, you could get sucked into this darkness and say, like, wait, we're right in front of the Grand Canyon. We should be the happiest person in the world. Why am I feeling like I want to jump off the Grand Canyon right now?
Yes.
Right? So, yeah. I remember watching your adventure, and I'm like, she is so strong. She is so strong, because I would never be able to go in my hard times when I was depressed. I would never be able to even leave my community. It was so big for me, the idea of leaving. I needed my my bed, my bathroom, my car, and seeing you travel, I'm like, oh my God, she is so strong. And I knew what you were going through because you were blogging about it. How do you tap into that? Because I'm sure you had fear. I'm sure you had fear.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you
I
tap into that energy of saying, I'll be okay?
that's it's funny because even when you say, "Oh, she's so strong," deep down inside, everything goes like, "No, she isn't. She is totally not strong." And I'm just sort of faking it. I think that's probably not the right word. So the fear, yes, I was very scared. Also, bear in mind, I hadn't actually left Europe up until my travel last year, because I'd moved to the UK when I was 21, and so I spent 12 years there, very happily going back and forth between London and Germany, and just visiting friends in Europe, which you can do for a while without getting bored. But I hadn't actually done the thing where I felt like a true foreigner, because within Europe I feel quite at home. So I was very scared, but the reason why I ended up doing it and I overcame this fear was because I felt that I had gotten myself into a situation where every day felt exactly the same. And I couldn't see how I was enhancing my experience on this planet by doing the same thing every day. And it was kind of the universe that gave me that push. And our landlord decided to renovate the house. We had to move out, and this was my home for 7 years. I thought, okay, well, I can try and get a new place in London. It's very expensive over there, so that's going to be a challenge because my place was lovely and very affordable. Or I can just embrace this and try see the positive thing, and that is, okay, well, I have a job as a writer where I can actually work from wherever, which is such a fortunate position to be in. And I haven't used that to any good. I'm living the life of someone who works in an office, although I don't work in an office. That's crazy. So the fear of life passing me by,
oh, wow,
was so much bigger at that point, and the push, I had to move anyways. I had to do something I was very scared of anyways. That made me decide that, okay, I'm going to get rid of everything. I'm going to get rid of my furniture. I'm not going to put things into storage either. I'm just going to have one suitcase and I see where it takes me. I'm not going to lie. I had friends waiting in LA at the beginning of the journey, where I knew, okay, this was going to be my first stop for quite a few weeks to get used to America and that sort of thing. So I think with depression, as you say, when you're really fully on it, you most likely cannot get out of bed. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have that sense of there is no hope for anything left, right? When I booked my tickets, I wasn't in that place.
Okay.
So I don't think I would have been able to do that in that place without anyone really holding my hand and doing it all for me. But because I had mapped out the journey when I was in a good place, it was okay. But before I went traveling, I decided that I was going to come off my medication.
I remember that.
Yes, oh my God. And I didn't want to be dependent on meds while I was abroad because I was worried, what if I lose them? I don't want to sit there having the withdrawal symptoms by myself.
And I remember you also talking about the fact that you wanted to see that you could maybe live one day. Like you were passionate to go back. Can I be without it one day? And you said, okay, once I'm doing change, maybe I could do the change together. How did that work out?
Absolutely. Well, I was on an antidepressant that's called, I think in the US it's called Effexor. In England it's called venlafaxine. And people have compared it to crack when it comes to withdrawal. I didn't know that, but I can 100% confirm this. Not that I've had any experience with crack, but I did feel like a junkie without my drugs. And I would have not been able to do it if I wouldn't have had my family in Germany who said, okay, when the real tough period, which is like the first 2-3 weeks, kick in, you come here. I had already tempered myself off very slowly over I think the course of 3 months before that, but I hadn't done the proper, okay, no medication. I had still taken it every other day, and I had this pill cutter to cut it into tiny pieces. But then when I was here and I had the whole withdrawal thing, it was terrible. It was awful. It was like someone put me right back into the worst times of my depression and anxiety, the worst times. I woke up my mum in the middle of the night, and I'm a 34-year-old woman,
right.
33 back then.
Right.
I don't particularly, want to do
right.
that.
Right.
But I woke her up in the middle of the night every night, crying and saying, I can't do this. I cannot continue. There's something wrong with me. This is why I need the meds, because look at me, look at what I'm like without it. But the truth is, this is simply your body trying to flush out the toxins and trying to get used to its own household again, and its own serotonin production. So to get through this time, if anyone would have said then, are you ready to go on a journey in, what was it, 3 weeks time? I would have said, no, I'm never leaving this bed. Never, never, never. But it did get better, and I did have people to help me. I wondered a lot about other people who don't have friends and family.
Right.
I don't know how they do it.
I don't think they can.
No, and it explains to me why so many people are hooked on it.
Right.
And again, I'm very, very always very clear about, I think if it works for you, there is no shame in taking medication.
And some people can't get off of it. I always say it's very everybody needs to know if they can or cannot.
Yeah.
I had a big vision to get off of mine, just like you. I was determined, and I tried a few times and I failed, and I went back on it. But I believe that we get to a place of security and knowing. It's that knowing I can, and maybe if I can't, I'll go back to it, and I have a support. Yes. But it's so important that people understand that it's not for everyone, and it's a journey, and it's hard, and everybody's journey on meds is different because everybody's body reacts differently. Like the way I got off meds, it's completely different than your journey because our chemicals are different, our environment, our traumas. Maybe some people really, really need it for their whole life. And they struggle with it. It's their happy day, but it's also the side effects are hard. So you were lucky that you were able to. Are you off of it completely now?
Yeah, I am.
I didn't know
one
that.
Year. Yes, 1 year off.
Off of everything?
Yeah.
Nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm celebrate this big time.
Yeah, it is. It feels like I'm back in control.
Right.
But I also have to say, I do spiral lower again.
Right.
I now have a very clear feeling of what the antidepressants actually did, how they cushioned things. They took off the edge. It just wasn't as raw. The pain wasn't as raw. Now when I go to bad places, and believe me, I still do, not as frequently, but I still have my days. It feels, I can burst into tears again, which is something I just didn't do. And then I can go into this really numb mood, where you really don't get out of bed and you just question what's it all about and what's the point. So I still have that, but I also have now this toolbox sort of emotionally when, okay, also through therapy, if that feeling strikes, here is my list of things to do. And
who taught you that? How did you get that toolbox? How did you accumulate it? What is it made out of?
It has come from therapy, without a doubt, and also trial and error. You notice what things work. For me, for example, I know it sounds stupid, but if I can drag myself into a bathtub, heat actually works for me.
Oh, wow.
Anything with heat, or a hot water bottle, or but it's good if I try somehow to leave the bed. So if I don't stay in the bed for the heat, but if I have something that makes me feel warm, that, for example. But I always hate when some people online say, oh, just have a bubble bath, because it's not that simple. Right. And it's something, that's not what I mean. I don't mean light all the candles and throw a bath bomb in.
Right.
But for me, heat is a real thing that makes me feel better. But also, I think I wrote a guest article about that as well. I wrote a letter to myself when I was feeling well. And I think this is actually a good piece of advice. so I wrote in my happiest moment, I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm going to write to Mari now when she's feeling really, really low. And I'm actually the biggest cheerleader to myself, right? Because I know me so well. I know what works if I'm well.
Wow.
Right. So I wrote down, so, dear Mari, I know you don't feel very well right now, but I'm just going to tell you that this too shall pass, that legendary sentence. And I'm going to just remind you of all the wonderful things we've seen so far and the things we've overcome. And then I kind of put together a little list of amazing moments, like, you know, seeing all the stars above the Grand Canyon, that sort of thing, seeing an eagle in Canada. And yeah, and you know, the whales in Reykjavik. Or so from that travel, I had a lot of stuff to put on there. But there was also things like, you know, listing the relationships I have in my life. The little moments that brought me joy and that are worth living for, because that really is what the letter is about. It's giving you a reason to say, okay, I feel horrible right now. I do not have any hope, but there is this, I wrote this. I know that I wrote this.
Right. So profound.
And it's so simple, really. It takes you maybe less than 15 minutes.
Were you crying?
You know?
Were you crying when you wrote it?
I didn't cry when I wrote it. But I have frequently so far cried when I read it,
right?
Because it takes me out of this numb feeling of quiet desperation that I feel when I'm depressed, and it makes me emotional in a good way, in the kind of being touched by life's experience, and to really, yes, and remember that we're here to have a good time, you know, in that sense. What are we here for? To love and connect with each other and make the most of it, you know, have a joyful time. So that letter has really helped me so far.
That's such a good tip. That is a wonderful tip, because I always tell people to remember when they have a good day, remember this good day. I said, and hold it in your toolbox. I actually call it a toolbox. I said, remember this good day, because you're going to have hard times, and just remember that good days come. But writing it down is so visual and so specific, because sometimes it's hard to go back to the memories when you're in the dark. It's very hard to remember or recall. You're like, no, it's bleak, it's horrible, I don't remember anything good. But when you actually physically wrote it down and you're reading something that you know that you wrote, it's so helpful to recall those times and actually bring back those emotions and those gratitude feelings of what you do, what you accomplished, where you could be, where you want to be, with your people in your life, your support network, which is so fabulous.
And I think also the fact that you take out this letter, you know, I have it on my phone, so I have it available all the time. But when I then look at it and I open up the file, it really does feel to me like I'm actively trying to help myself. You know, I'm not putting a pill in my mouth, but I have, you know, that's why I call it my toolkit as well. It is a tool to feel better. And I think already when you take that tiny step, and even if it's just opening this letter on your phone or whatever, wherever you have it, is movement. You getting out of that stuck sense, you know.
And you're proving to yourself that you're trying.
Yes.
And you haven't given up on yourself.
Yes. And it changes what's going on in your brain, right? You put your focus elsewhere than on the doom and gloom.
Right.
And even if it's just for 3 minutes, but that's an achievement.
What else is in your toolkit?
What else is in my toolkit? Well, as I said earlier, my support system. I have now a good handful of people where I know if I call them and I make no sense and I'm just telling them I feel horrible and I don't have to explain it to them. They'll just say the right things.
Do you tell them what to say?
No, I don't. But those are people, and that's why I think it's important to know who to call, because I have friends who I love very much, but I know I cannot call them in those situations. I have also relatives who I know I cannot call.
Right.
So it's kind of figuring out.
They're evil. They just don't know.
No, absolutely.
They don't know the language that we need to hear.
Absolutely. And it is very specific language. Sometimes when I have arguments with people over how you deal with a loved one who goes through mental health problems, I always say, look, there is so much online where it actually tells you, do not put pressure on them. Just give them a hug if you can, or just, you know, make them feel better without making them feel guilty that they don't feel well. It's not that hard, really. But you have, I think, the best people so far that have helped me and my friends and family circle were people who have experienced the feeling themselves as well.
Exactly.
And I don't blame anyone for not understanding it if you've never been to that dark spot.
Right. But it takes time. And I want to emphasize to people that are starting the journey, unfortunately, in this, that it's very important to find the right people. And it doesn't mean that the people that don't know how to comfort you are bad. They just are ignorant. It's a new language. And for people that it comes through life, I could vouch for myself. I used to tell people it's all in your head, snap out of it. I was the worst supporter. The worst. I always feel like God brought it to my life, so I should see differently, because I used to say it's all in your mind, it's all in your head, snap out of it, it's in your hand. And when there were people that would say that to me, and I would see like, oh my God, what a mirror to what I used to say, but how wrong. Yes, it's in my mind, but I can't control it. And it's so bleak and it's so hard. And I wish there is no better wish that we have of to be happy again, to smile, to see the sun like you're seeing the sun. I remember sitting in Boca when my daughter was maybe 1.5, and she was dancing and smiling, and Ari was cheering her on, and I couldn't smile. And Ari looked at me, he's like, don't you see this joy? I said, no, I can't smile. My heart is broken, is shattered. There's nothing that will bring that. And at that moment, he got the reminder, oh, she's at that time. I get it. She can't smile now. Yeah, she needs to be allowed to be not okay, and she needs the comforting. She doesn't need the cheerleaders, clowns coming, ha ha, smile. And it's so hard for loved ones to come in that journey with us, because they want us happy as well. No one wants to live with someone that's gray. It's very hard. So
and they're right. I want myself to be happy as well.
Right.
It's just how to get there, I think, well, we had a very profound moment, which might be interesting actually to share. In my family, we had a very severe attempted suicide. So my relative, and I'm mindful of, it's not my story to share, but it was a relative who was in a coma. Her whole body was severely damaged, and thank God it's all sorted now. It's been years ago, but I remember my family was in the hanging out in the intensive care unit. We were thinking about the doctors that had to do, I think, 10, 12 different kinds of surgery, and what they feel like that someone did there, in quotation marks, to themselves. You have people you put back together there who had accidents, and then you have someone who tried to commit suicide. How do the doctors feel about that? And we talked to this doctor who did an amazing job about this, and he was like, I don't see it like that at all. I don't make a difference between any of this, because depression is an illness that can be as fatal as a car accident, and there is no difference. That there isn't, because it is not the person that says, oh well, I'm gonna do this today. Exactly. It is not like that. And for us, it was so important to hear that from one of the doctors, because obviously we didn't judge it, but seeing everyone else, the people who were all crying about loved ones there, we were struggling to understand how to categorize it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And hearing from the doctor, well, this is, if someone has cancer or a broken leg,
it's not their choice.
No, and it's the exact same. And sometimes you need to hear that from one of the gods in white, because then it's like, yeah, he's right, there is no difference,
because we do think that it's their choice. Because in human mind, we believe, oh, he chose to take that bottle of whatever that was fatal. He chose to jump off of the roof. It was his choice. But what they don't realize is that with mental illness, the lack of choice is lack.
Yes.
Right. So, which is so important to not judge anyone. Whatever happened, of course, it's a horrific situation to be in. And the news is always horrible when somebody wants to, and you have to help them to get out of that lack of choice. And like you have the letters, have something that reminds them,
Yeah.
oh, come back to choice, come back to
Yeah.
that feeling of, yeah, maybe there is something to live for, even though it's so hard to breathe another breath.
Yeah. And just taking it day by day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you start your journey with anxiety and depression?
That was after that happened, and I think I was always quite strong in my family, the strong one who fixes things,
Mm.
and then I completely crashed. I think in 2015, I think, or
So
14.
it's very recent.
So it's still very recent. And then, of course, I had the incident where PTSD was added, the traumatic thing that you can read all about my blog, all on my
Yes.
blog about. So I'm not going to go into that because I think that would just be very long at
Right.
this point.
Right. So
But
beforehand, you were a redhead, happy-go-lucky, cheerful person?
I would never put it like that. I don't think, because I've always thought very deeply about life
Oh, okay.
from childhood onwards. But that was the time when I acknowledged that there was something wrong. That
Acceptance, maybe.
yes, well, yeah, and that I needed help from the outside. I had by that time read every self-help book under the planet, under the sun, and it just didn't do anything. And then I had a situation where my ex-boyfriend called the police because he thought I was going to try and commit suicide. He obviously knew family history, and I don't blame him. He couldn't get to me, he was far away. So he sent some police over, and there were some lovely guys in uniform who knocked on my door and asked me if I was okay.
Right.
And that was very strange, but I really, really needed that to happen.
Oh, really?
Because
You were
yes.
grateful.
I was. Yeah. I
Oh,
mean, in that moment, I
you're
was
angry, probably.
I was crying.
Yeah.
I was at a time then when I wasn't even angry. I just let them in, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. It was all, I didn't care anymore who was
Wait.
in my flat and why.
Right. This was when? 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think 2014.
So
Yeah.
growing up, what was that? What was your darkest moment growing up? Because it doesn't sound like you suffer. You suffered from what it's called to be a deep person and trying to figure out life, which is very hard.
Yes.
And I feel like the deep people tend to suffer with depression and anxiety because the lack of understanding and figuring it out gets us into crazy mode.
Yeah.
And frustration and like trying to refigure it out. It goes into a loop.
Yes.
So, but did you ever have growing up a time that you said, this is so dark, or you never had that before?
No, I don't think I had one moment up until I was 18, 19, where I know I had panic attacks. I just didn't know what they were back then. But before that, I just had this continuous heaviness, and I'm very blessed with a very loving family that I could talk about everything with. But my mom used to tell me, oh, well, you just carry the burden of the world on your shoulders.
Exactly.
And that was just an accepted thing. And being a creative, you always think, oh, well, that's what artists are like, isn't it? We all need to feel quite gloomy. And I think in recent years that, I don't know, that thought was just like, no, hold on. Only because I write things and I reflect on society and I ask big questions, that doesn't mean I have to feel horrible all of the time. That can't come with a job description.
Right.
But so for that amount of time, I'd always just accepted it for like, well, what artist was happy-go-lucky in the great history, and of course you measure yourself with the great artists of the world.
Right.
Yeah, I think it, because it was always a feeling that was accompanying me. Wherever I went, I would have very dark moments. I just thought that was normal, because you don't know when you grow up, you don't know what's normal, right? You don't have a point of reference of how someone else feels 24/7.
Right.
So I think as an adult, you start reflecting more on like, okay, is it actually normal that I cry every morning? and that I find it so hard to even get myself into the shower, or not even shower, but put on clothes. Why is this so hard all of a sudden? And I do think the more responsibility you have as, you know, a young adult, and then later on, it does become harder to deny the fact that you're not maybe functioning fully.
Right.
And I always say, well, because people ask me, when should you start doing therapy, or when should you maybe consider medication? And I'm always saying, well, you have to individually sit down with yourself and see, is this feeling, are these bad feelings impacting me? How much are they impacting me?
And the people around me.
Yes. So it's a very personal equation, isn't it? Like, you just have to see. If I can't function, then that's probably a signal that you maybe need to ask for help, and that's okay.
And also sometimes therapy is just helpful to see where we're holding. Sometimes people don't need therapy if they have somebody very close to them that they can trust,
talk to.
But unfortunately, some people don't have that. So put yourself into therapy. Try to figure it out with some professional, and because I don't think it's something that a friend can tell you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's a very broad shoulders to take upon yourself to say, okay, this is what you need. You need medication. This is what your diagnosis, because it's not our place, but we could support them to get the proper help, to analyze, for them to dig deep. Just by the fact that they ask you that, I think that's already code red. You need help.
Yes, I think people who consider it probably benefit from speaking to a therapist at least once, or a doctor, or, you know, because I made that mistake. I was thinking about it for years.
Really?
I was thinking, should I? Yeah, because I was buying all these books. And
was it the stigma, you think?
No, I think I've always been very open. Yeah, I don't think I don't actually. This is a good question that I've never thought about. Why have I always been so open about this? I never felt shame about asking for help. But I never trusted that I could get help, in the sense that I also, you know, on a good day, I'm very self-confident. And, you know, I help others. I'm the one who sits down with you and talks about, yes.
Right.
And I thrive on that. And, you know, I like that. So I had that feeling that, okay, well, who
no
else
one can
is
fix
gonna...
me?
Yes, exactly. If I can't do it, and I'm so good at it, then how's anyone else? And that's why I needed these police guys in my living room drinking tea with me, which was bizarre, telling me, okay, well, maybe it's time now. You've tried, because I told them, you know, they asked me about my life story, and they said, maybe you've tried long enough now to help yourself, and maybe you just let someone else try it.
Right.
And at that point, I was like, yeah, okay, well, take me to the hospital. And
Are you
off we
serious?
went.
Did you really?
Yeah, I didn't stay in the hospital. They took me there because obviously I was not in a good place. I had no intention of harming myself whatsoever, but you just never know. You just never know. Yeah. And they were worried. So they took me to the hospital in an ambulance. Paramedics came as well.
Where was this? London?
This was in London. Yeah, in London. And I remember being escorted out of my house with the 2 police guys, 2 paramedics, and the neighbors, because there are quite a few stores right next to me, and the neighbors looking at me, and I was just like, oh God, okay, well, this is the not so fun part. But everyone was absolutely lovely. And then in the hospital, I spoke to a psychologist, and she, for the first time, mentioned anxiety disorders. And I had, up until this point, I wouldn't say I was an anxious person. I just didn't know I was, you know, I just didn't see it. And then I was like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, so that's not normal. Okay, well, I do this a lot, you know, I worry a lot. But with her, we also came to the conclusion that if I stayed in the hospital, I would probably be worse off, because hospitals are not the, you know, most fun place.
I'm surprised that she said that, by the way. You should send her a big thank you card with roses, because that probably saved you, because a lot of times hospitals are like, oh, stay, and then if you get into this, and then you see more disasters and you spiral out of control. Sometimes you need it because you can't. But Wow, kudos to her.
No, yeah, she, well, I have to say though, because in the UK, the health care is free.
Right,
They
right.
do try to not have as many people in the hospital. So slightly different than in the US,
Oh, right, right.
which
Okay.
we're very lucky in that sense that everybody can
Right,
get help immediately.
right.
But I think the important factor was that she knew that I had someone coming to look after me,
Okay.
because
She
my
wouldn't do
ex-boyfriend was
that.
on his way. She would have not
Right.
sent me away if the alternative was to go back home by myself.
Okay.
And I was literally babysat by my friends for another, I think, 10 days. And
Right,
they had, they always had someone with me,
right,
because it was like the worst time then I've had. And that kickstarted therapy and medication and all of that
right.
back then. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm just thinking as you're speaking that the culture in Germany and London is so reserved, very private, very not like America. Oh, today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm sad. Oh, this is horrible that happened. Very reserved. So you're very outspoken for your culture, probably.
I think in the UK I am. In Germany, I think we're a lot more like we're a lot more like Americans. I think in the sense that
Really?
we say things as they are.
Oh,
In the UK, you're 100% right.
mm.
Even after a decade there, I just had an email today where I was like, I wonder if she meant something else by saying this sentence. And I
Oh,
sent this to my friends, and I'm like, I don't know, is she just politely telling me to fuck off or
right,
whatever.
right.
I just don't know. I don't know if you have to beep that, by the way. But see, this is me being just very blunt. But yeah, you're right. In the UK, I think the stigma issue is still bigger because people generally aren't as open, and politeness is a huge deal there.
Right,
But I think, to be honest, it's very hard for me to judge the whole stigma situation, because I live in this bubble now where mental health is sort of a 24/7 thing. I'm very surrounded by people who talk so openly about it, and it's the same. I do some stuff about body positivity and embracing all shapes, and
hmm,
I was speaking to this amazing body positivity blogger, and she was also saying, well, we think everything has changed and now the society is all inclusive, but that's the bubble, like you and me, right?
exactly. And
Where
it's a
for us
small
it's
percent.
yes. And if
We're
you look at
loud, we're loud,
mhm,
but it's still small
yeah,
percent because there's still
and
people
that's
crying in
why
silence.
I think it's so important to have podcasts like yours, because the more material we can generate about this stuff, that's
Right.
how we eventually remove it. But I think we're still far from it. I don't
Yeah.
think, if I say the average person, I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you think of a dinner party situation, I think there are very few people who just then say, oh yeah, well, I've just come home from my therapist, and
Mm.
I've suffered a panic attack yesterday and I had to breathe into a bag in Leicester Square, or
Right.
yeah. Oh, another thing in my toolbox, actually, chocolate.
I love
Tiny piece of dark chocolate,
I
because
know.
then my senses take over, right? Like
Right.
I feel the texture and taste, and that's for me for panic attacks.
Right. Not only,
Something that
but chocolate in general is something
mm,
that brings happiness in general, but
yeah,
it's a very good technique for panic attacks because
yeah,
sometimes we can't even feel, we go numb.
yeah. And you have to bring yourself back into the present moment. And I
Mm.
think some people name everything around them, or you can count. But for me, I found if I have really dark chocolate, and I mean, it could be anything,
Mm.
like something strong that you like, it takes, like, my focus goes to my taste buds for
Mm.
that amount of time. And it gives me that little break from the panic attacks. And that's usually all I need
To break
to
it,
then, yes.
to
So
break that
that's for
loop.
me. Yeah.
Wow, what a good tip. Thank you. Do you still get panic attacks nowadays?
Yeah,
Full
I do. Yeah, that has more to do with the PTSD stuff
blown.
that I've only sort of recently, I think, overcame. Well, I don't really want to jinx it. I don't think you ever overcome anything with mental
Mm.
health. It's always a companion.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I do still get them. But recently, I've managed to not go deep into it.
Okay.
But there can be triggers. Touch wood, there won't be any. But that I know that certain situations the fear will kick in, just because I've witnessed some horrific stuff, and it's just, part of it is also a good response, because it's my body and my soul trying to protect myself,
Protect from,
right? So
right.
it's all in a, it all needs to be balanced. I suppose.
Did you ever use holistic medicine like healers or meditation or stuff like that? Or you're
Yes.
strictly old school therapy?
No, I've tried everything because I was so desperate at times that I have a great selection, I think, of therapists and shamans.
Right,
I do Reiki as well, and I'm a big fan of meditation. We recently we started going to this Buddhist meditation group, which is a new level for me because I don't like sitting still for very long, but
right,
I can feel it's helping me. I chant as well. A healer in LA was telling me that for me it's good to chant, so
right.
I do that.
Okay. And do you feel these things are helpful?
Yes, and I don't think I've talked so much about with so many people about the placebo effect, and you can say the same about medication as well. We don't really know how
Right.
it all works, and I always think whatever works for you,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's someone chanting around you and spitting holy water on your forehead,
Right.
if that worked, great,
Right.
don't question it.
Exactly. Go with
You
it.
know,
Right. And don't try
yeah.
to look for approval.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, just be okay with the fact that you're feeling better and just say, okay, this works for me. Because a lot of people are going to roll their eyes, and also choose wisely who you're looking to share it with, because some
Hmm.
people will not be so inviting to hear things that are not straightforward, and then it
Yeah.
starts doubting yourself. Am I really crazy? Am I imagining? Is it really helping me? And if something works, stick to it and be happy that you have it and
Yes.
celebrate the day that it was found, and created.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to know who we share things with. And you share a lot. How much how big of a community did you think that you help by sharing? Like, I think
Oh, I don't know.
you must have a lot of people reaching out to you
Oh
about
yeah.
questions constantly.
Um, I do, and I'm really, really grateful for every message that I get, because people always think that my blog helps other people, but in actual fact, it makes me feel just as connected.
Hmm.
So whenever I get a message from someone saying, "Oh, I read this and I felt less alone," I
Mm.
write them back, "You know what? Right now, I feel less alone
Oh, wow.
because we've just connected over this, and we're both in this thing."
Right.
And they're all, in a sense, strangers, right? Most of them. I mean, we used to be strangers,
Right. Right.
but as you know from us, when you share the experience of that dark place,
Mm.
you already have more in common than with most of the
Right.
people around you
Right.
that are within physical reach.
Right.
So I'm very grateful for that community, because it absolutely is a two-way road, no question about that.
Do you have ever dreams of creating something very big for the mental health world?
Oh God, yes.
I
I
want to.
I dream big.
What? Give me one
Yeah,
thing.
we've there's like a group of other mental health bloggers in London as well, and we got together because we were planning, we still kind of are, but it's difficult, a big mental health fair in London
Hmm.
that would actually invite people to also share, but also not put pressure on them if they didn't. It's a very delicate dance,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because everybody has the right to not be outspoken about it.
Right. Right.
And at the same time, you kind of want to make it not fashionable, but you want to make it okay,
Right.
that just as you
Safe.
would talk, yes, as you would talk about a headache,
Mm.
no one is going to feel ashamed about a headache.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, oh, I have a headache today. You can say, well, I'm feeling low today.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
But we're not there yet, but we were planning a bigger event and try and get some celebrities to talk about their experience, and especially when it comes to men as well, because I think the female community is miles ahead
Mm.
globally, I think.
Right.
And when it comes to men, there is still a lot of work to be done. That, yeah, gender
Right.
stuff. A man
Right.
has to be strong and
Right. Right.
all that fun stuff that
Right.
gets,
Right.
yeah.
Bigger than I can even fathom. I'm like, we'll stay with the gender that we recognize. It's good for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
Yes.
it's a big thing to attack, and to also, like we say about mental health, we don't understand until you're in it. I think also
Mm.
as a male, we don't understand their
Oh yeah.
How it affects their whole sense of being. It's easy for us
Yes.
as a feminine to say, okay, it's easy to be delicate, flower, emotional, but maybe for them it's really hard and it's not their language.
Completely
And
different.
yeah, so it's easy for us to say, oh, it's easy for us, but it's really, we don't understand
It's
their
not.
language,
Yeah.
their challenges in it. So I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But I would love to come if there's ever an event, I'll be
Oh
there.
God, yeah. You'd be the
You
first
know.
one to be invited. You know it.
I like, my dream is to have an open platform with workshops for 3 days, bring professionals and just people like us that struggled and share
Yeah.
the journeys and make a sense of community, but in a recyclable way. Like once you feel like you got to a healing point, pay it forward. And
Oh, I love that.
it has to be like a recycle. And because I really feel that part of my journey of healing was paying it forward. And my
Yeah.
constant afloat of being okay, which is never okay, but I'm saying that not having to go back on medication and having to, and the ability to leave my healer and to live and to heal myself with my
Yes.
mind without a crutch, I feel was the fact that I was able to invite others, like you say, into, like when someone's sending you a response to your blog, they're really helping you. They're really helping you because you feel a sense of community. And
Yeah.
by giving is getting, really giving is getting, and it's so 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 big.
So we heard it here first,
Yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
gonna do that.
yes.
I'll happily participate.
Yes, God willing, it's
Um,
gonna be.
the
I want
next.
to. I want to have bring change to mind. They're full of celebrities in L.A. I think they're in
Mm-hmm.
L.A. No, in San Francisco. They're all about breaking the stigma, but they're starting in schools. They're starting.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, to bring awareness to mental health and breaking the stigma in community, which is so important nowadays too, because the suicide rate is going up, and
Yeah.
it's so so important. So what's your plan for the summer?
My plan for the summer is to figure out where I will be living, because I'm still just me and my suitcase. So I'm going back to London Wednesday, and then I'll stay there, and then I'll hop around a bit more. But I'm trying to come up with a sort of master plan, which already worries me. So I should probably not think
Not thinking
about that
about it.
too much.
Yeah, but the
Um,
master plan is going through the journey of it, because there is no master
exactly.
plan really that
There
we
is
are
no
aware of.
but you see how easily, right, I also tap into the whole pressure thing. I put a
Right,
lot of pressure on myself, and then I'm like, no, Mari, remember, this is the thing we don't do anymore. We
right,
just live day by day. So
right.
I have no idea what's going to happen this
Mm.
summer. That is the
Okay,
truth.
okay, good. But maybe we'll meet, maybe either in Israel or
Oh yeah. Oh, Israel, yes, you need to
maybe
show me Tel
Israel.
Aviv.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you two more questions. Where people can
Hmm.
find your amazing talent of your blog, on Instagram. I know you have a very strong presence on Instagram. Where do you like
Yeah.
talking about mental illness the most?
I think for me, it is. I do have a website which is just my name. So it's maristracke.com. But I engage the most, I think, on my Instagram, which is also just my name.
We'll have
And
it in the show notes.
yeah, and I think what I like about it is that it's immediate. I can talk to people there, people can comment, and it's a little bit like a diary in a way that
Mm,
it has become that for some reason. And I like it that it's very direct and very in the now.
right.
I don't sit for like days and days and write like when I write my guest articles, I obviously write them over a course of time, but with those blog posts on Instagram, it
Mm,
is the raw, the pure moment, and I think that's what works as well on
right. Definitely follow her on Instagram. She's also a lot of fun. Like different
there.
faces, always different faces, different expressions, and always very beautiful. Always, always
Oh,
very
thank you.
beautiful. So, Mari, what does hope mean to you?
Hope to me means to feel a sense of joyous excitement.
Mm,
It means to me that if I feel hope, I have a sparkle in my eye.
wow.
I think
Mm,
you could still have a tearful eye,
mm-hmm.
but there is a spark.
Mm-hmm.
It's not numb. There is
Okay.
the tiniest, it doesn't have to be big.
Right.
But there is the spark that you think, maybe
Right.
there's something there.
Okay.
I think that's hope for me.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much. I could sit with you forever and ever and ever.
I know.
And dissect this, and I'm probably going to have you many more times on this show. But
Well, I love talking to you,
just
as we did back then in Manhattan.
Yes. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for breaking the stigma for all of our, as Mary calls it, us fellow crazies. She calls us fellow crazies. And right? Is that the way you call us?
With a lot of love.
With a lot of love.
I'm one of you. So
Right. And only somebody that's in it can laugh about it. So thank you for doing your work in a sense of community, a sense of permission to be not okay at moments, and giving hope and inspiration and tips and motivation for those that are struggling in the now. And it really helps the world. So
thank you for having me.
And continue doing your good work. And hopefully we can write this beautiful, beautiful book of where Mari ended up with her journey of everything, mental health, acting, writing, and
I have a book in the making, by the way.
Yay!
So that's something you'll actually be hearing about in the next few months, I think.
And what's the topic?
It is how to travel with anxiety and depression and how to overcome trauma. So
wait, what? My first question was about traveling with. Oh my gosh! So and I didn't know that. By the way, guys, I did not know this about it. We didn't speak before we actually hopped on the phone now, so I didn't know about this book, and I didn't know what the topic was. So
so that's actually just tiny things sprung into my mind, something to maybe look out for.
Yeah. Do you have a date when you want to publish it, when you want to go?
No. Well, I'm writing it at the moment, but I'm also now shopping around a book proposal. Because I want to do it right, and I think it deserves, the kind of space. I don't want to rush into any kind of self-publishing, although I think that's a great new way to do things. Right. But if there are any publishers out there, come and contact me. I have a lot of stories to tell.
So we're going to put in the show notes all the places we can hook up with you and chat with you and get support from you. Looking forward to seeing you soon, God willing.
Yes, you too.
And regards to your parents, and enjoying your rest of the trip.
Thanks so much. And to your gorgeous family.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button so you can hear further episodes. If you are listening to us on iTunes, please leave feedback and ratings below. Let us know if there's any topic that you would like to hear from us in the future. Bye till next time.